Hi, my name is Krunal, and first of all, I would like to throw a disclaimer that I'm not an epidemiologist, not a data science person. I'm just a curious guy who looks at numbers and tries to point out at trends. All my data that is collected is from the internet, sources of which I will add in the description of the video, and my main working Excel sheets link will also be given there. If you find any discrepancies, please let me know. Okay, so once that's out of the way, let's look at the numbers. So the total confirmed cases as of 31st May 2020 are 62,59,249. Total recovered 28,43,998. Total deaths 3,73,697. Active cases 30,41,554. So basically the infection rate currently, the IFR, is at 6%. But the case fatality rate is at 12%. Please note that I couldn't find UK's recovery figures anywhere. If anyone can give it to me, I'll be highly obliged, and then this dataset and charts here will be more accurate and they will assert my viewpoint even further, as the IFR and CFR rates will effectively be lesser than they are currently showing, because UK would be adding at least 1.5 lakhs of more recovered cases. What I would like to propose is that both these numbers, the IFR and the CFR, are too high, as it's impossible to get a true denominator of COVID-19, as 35 to 75% of the patients detected are asymptomatic. Hence, in my opinion, we should clearly conclude that the mortality rate, currently around 6% worldwide, is much higher than it truly is. And by denominator, I mean the number of actual infected people, because we don't know how many people are actually infected, and we have many studies to suggest that the real infection rate is much higher than what we have got. Now here are some news articles based on these studies. I'll include the link of that JAMA research article on New York in the description. I don't think that these estimations are wild by any standards, because we have seen these same trends pop out of so many countries. Here we can see similar articles on studies conducted in Germany. The main issue with coronavirus is how non-lethal, if I can use that term, is it to the majority of the population. It stays under the radar till it hits the vulnerable of our society, that is elderly people who have comorbidities. Until then, it just doesn't show on the radar. So it's very hard to catch it when it strikes at first. As we can see in these articles as well, that the spread of the disease started way early than the first deaths started to get ever reported. Now let's look at a different perspective. This is a chart of daily new additions of cases, recoveries and deaths. And this is the same chart consolidated into weekly numbers to smoothen it out a bit and see the trend a bit more clearly. I couldn't find the daily test progression numbers of the world to include in this, and give you a much better argument that the denominator we currently have is too low. If anyone can share it, I would be greatly obliged. But the point that I'm trying to make here is, as tests have increased and are increasing day by day, we are discovering more and more patients. And as we discover more and more patients, we are seeing a clear trends of both the IFR and the CFR declining. Now this is a chart of test positivity rate of the 20 top infected countries of the world. Just a note that China isn't showing here because it has not shared its test data. It really wouldn't be unwise to state that community spread of COVID-19 in these countries is rampant. Now here is a chart of the IFR and CFR with the mean age of that country's population. You can clearly see, except for Germany and Russia, both of whom did very aggressive testing, we see a correlation between the age and the CFR. Again, a footnote that UK doesn't have a CFR as they have not shared any of the recovery patients' data. So COVID-19 amounts to roughly 1.52% of world's total death cause in 2020's 5 months. Not to forget that currently we cannot distinguish between how many people died from COVID-19 and how many people died with COVID-19, with many data sets suggesting comorbidities in patients as high as 90% to as low as 50%. Maybe when this storm has passed and we have all gathered all the data properly, we might end up with less than a week's death added to this year's figures due to COVID-19. Now let's look at the Indian figures at the end of 31st May 2020. Total confirmed cases at 1,90,622, total recovered at 91,855, total deaths at 5,408, active cases at 93,359. Now let's put these numbers into perspective. So India's IFR is at 3% and CFR is at 6%. That's half of the world's average. Maybe the age factor, that India being so young, is playing out. Maybe it's the BCG vaccine, universal vaccine program that India has been following. Maybe it's the genes. Maybe it's COVID's mutation that is weaker than India. Or maybe it's a combination of everything. We don't know yet, and we'll find out that very soon. But it's good news for us anyways. Here I have plotted the tests done per week along with the weekly trends of new cases, recoveries and deaths. Please note that I have plotted the test numbers at 1/10 of the power just to give a better graphical representation, because if I plot them at full effect they will minuscule the rest of the three lines and make the chart very hard to read. The point here being that as we do more and more tests and discover more and more patients, the recovery rates are steadily rising, but with it the death rates are lagging far behind. The same effect we saw in the world chart as well, the only difference being that I didn't have the daily test progression numbers there, as I couldn't find them anywhere. So with this I would like to conclude that in my honest opinion there is enough evidence in the data to suggest that this disease is far less lethal than we anticipated it to be, and lockdowns are too costly a method to fight with COVID-19. Although no kind of death is easy to digest, we have to accept death is life's completion and not its end. Stay fit and stay mentally strong, and let's learn to live with the virus instead of burying our heads into the sand. We have already spent trillions of dollars worth of time and energy by shutting our economies. Now is the time to apply our brains and think more innovatively. Thank you.